Welcome into another edition of the DFS Report. It is Monday, March 3rd. We are going to have a fun one today. I am in a terrific, little bit chirpy mood. Zach is grumpy. So we're going to have fun. This is going to be... I was just chirping the Oilers, and I thought he was going to reach to the computer and beat the shit out of me. So we are going to have a lot of fun on this. Whether you play on FanDuel or DraftKings, 5 or 6 game slate, whichever way you look at it, we only cover the DraftKings main slate, so we will not be talking about the Washington-Ottawa game whatsoever. But if you play on FanDuel and you want to get the information for that game, we have FanDuel-specific charts on dailyfaceoff.com, and it has all the information for that game. For the purposes of this show, we will not be covering that. We will be covering the 5-game main slate for DraftKings only. Our guy Beebs comes in here to let us know that Igor Shesterkin is confirmed for the New York Rangers. No other lineup changes. Thanks to Beebs. Okay, let's get into the starting goalies. We will talk about at least Logan Thompson versus Linus Ullmark in that first game. After that, that's all you're going to hear. Igor Shesterkin, we now know, is confirmed. Let's see if the site's updated. And it is. Bang. Igor Shesterkin confirmed for the New York Rangers. Will be Ilya Sorokin likely for the New York Islanders. These two teams met last week, and the Rangers won 5-1 despite getting dominated. Ilya Sorokin looking to avenge that defeat. Sam Montembeault up against Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen. Actually, he's unconfirmed, so projected to see Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen, but it'll be Sam Montembeault for the Montreal Canadiens. It's Sergei Bobrovsky versus Andrei Vasilevsky in what should be a tremendous game in Florida tonight. Projecting to see Anthony Stolarz. Will be Alexander Georgiev for the San Jose Sharks. And then in the nightcap, the 8:30 start, so we will be, crowning some big winners tonight, much earlier than normal. Spencer Knight makes his Blackhawks debut. He will face the LA Kings, who will counter with Darcy Kemper. Let's get into it, Zach. Are you ready? Are you as excited as I am?
Yeah, I am. Seems like a pretty fun slate today. The pricing is still completely ass. I hate this dynamic pricing, but it actually feels like there's some value plays. I got an article up on the DFO site here. I think it's going to be a pretty interesting slate, man. I'm pretty excited about this one. I'm not going to lie.
Let's dive in. We will start with the Rangers and the Islanders. It is basically a toss-up. We've got the Rangers at -110, the Islanders at +100. 3.0 implied total for the Rangers, 2.9 for the Islanders. In terms of the matchups in this game, one of the higher event games of the night, second highest pace score. Top line for the Rangers grades out with the best matchup on the Rangers side of things. Same thing goes with the Islanders. The Rangers have been matching up the Zibanejad, JT Miller, Will Cooley line up against the opposition's top best. We're going to see a lot of Miller, Zibanejad, Cooley against the Bo Horvat line. We're going to see a lot of the Vincent Trocheck, Artemi Panarin line up against the Brock Nelson line, and the third and fourth lines will go head-to-head. Islanders will make some changes tonight. Unlike the Rangers, we are going to see Jean-Gabriel Pageau move up to the top line to play with Bo Horvat and Anders Lee. They are going to be scratching Pierre Engvall and Anthony Duclair. So this is your Islanders lineup tonight. Based on the matchups here, based on the pace score, obviously both lines look pretty interesting. Let's start with Rangers 1. Zach, this is a line that we've played a lot over the last few years, maybe a little bit less this year, just because the Rangers have struggled a little bit, but they've been a lot better as of late. And this top line looks like they're in a pretty good spot tonight. We talk about this dynamic pricing, people being crazy expensive, more expensive than they should be. This line feels pretty well priced. Like I like getting Vincent Trocheck sub K. Alexi Lafreniere maybe hasn't been great as of late, but at $5,200, and then Panarin at $7K feels like a really good price tag here for New York 1. And this is a line that I'm certainly very interested in. The public seems to be a little bit more interested in the Islanders top line, which comes in about 4% higher. They are obviously a little bit cheaper. Anders Lee, $5,100, Bo Horvat, $6,700, and Pageau, $3,900. You also have two centers on that line in Horvat and Pageau. But yeah, Pageau looks like a pretty decent value play. I actually have him in my DFO head-to-head lineup, which we'll get to at the end of the show. But pretty nice price tag for both of these top lines for each team. Which one do you prefer tonight?
Yeah, I think I'm going to lean towards the Rangers top line here tonight. They're grading it as the second best line to target on the slate overall. Seeing only about 8.8% ownership here. I think that's a little bit low for these guys. They had a fairly solid game yesterday going up against the Predators. Panarin, I think he had like 7 or 8 shots on goal there. So finding some volume for him. You mentioned Lafreniere, $5,200. It feels like a reasonable price for him. Even before this new dynamic pricing came in, he was kind of fluctuating in like the mid 4K to mid 5K range. So I'm okay paying this price here. It feels like this 5K range, like 5 to 5,500 is kind of like where all these middling guys kind of go to that are fairly inconsistent. So, I like this spot here for this Rangers top line. They look to be in a pretty good spot. Panarin, 15 goals, 42 points in 36 games against the New York Islanders. He's had a lot of success against them. What's interesting is both Sorokin and Igor Shesterkin have struggled against these opposing teams here. So I kind of feel like this one could be a little bit of a higher scoring game, which I don't think we would typically think between a game between the Rangers and the Islanders. Obviously the Rangers still struggling here as of late. It doesn't really feel like they can really string it together for whatever reason. The Ryan Lindgren trade last week, obviously the blue line looks completely different. You've got Zach Jones, power play quarterback one after being, a healthy scratch for a lot of periods of time throughout the season. So, I think I like both of these top sixes here. Probably a little more comfortable getting to the top line of the Rangers, but I don't mind mixing in a little bit of Islanders, which means that they're absolutely going to flop tonight because anytime I play the Islanders, they completely shit the bed for me.
Yeah, as I mentioned, the Rangers have been a little bit better, winners of 6 of their last 9. So they are trying to string it together a little bit. But I agree with you. For the most part this season, it's been kind of 2 steps forward, 1 step back for them for the most part. It is worth mentioning when these two teams met last week, as I mentioned, the Rangers won 5-1, but the Islanders really dominated that game. Sorokin just shit his pants. But the top line for the Islanders that night, which was Duclair, Horvat, and Lee, the Corsi 4, 18 Corsi 4, which is shot attempts for, and 2 shot attempts against that night. Just absolutely dominated. 10 scoring chances to 0 that night. They produced a 0.84 expected goals for in that game. So that's pretty interesting. And in that game, let's just pull it up here. In that game, they faced the Zibanejad, Miller, Cooley line all night long and absolutely caved them in. So it's the exact same matchup that we're going to see tonight, just with a little bit of a different wrinkle here with Pajot instead of Duclair. So I don't mind going back to the Islanders top line either, and hopefully they can replicate that performance from the other night. The second lines, I think, are both in play as well. I do like the second line from the Islanders too, just because Palmieri and Nelson are probably the 2 hottest players on the Islanders side of things. There's also 2 guys that are probably getting traded this week, or at least are rumored to be getting traded this week. So could be their final hurrah here with the Islanders, but they've both been playing tremendously well as of late, putting up big numbers, both of them. So I don't mind getting to them. Their matchup's okay. They're going to see a lot of that Trocheck line. That Trocheck line, as we know, not the best defensive line in the league. So I don't mind getting to Islanders too, which actually has better offensive metrics than what we've got projected here for the top line. So don't mind getting to them. Hopefully if they can stay hot. New York too has been steadily drawing ownership pretty much every slate as well. Cooley, I still think, is a great value play. That's hard to find solid 3K value plays right now. He's at 3,600. Miller, 6K. He's looked solid. Zibanejad, 6,200. I saw a stat or a tweet the other day. Maybe it was today. I can't remember. But JT Miller has more points than Elias Pettersson has shots on goal since being traded to the Rangers. We talk about Elias. I thought that'd be fun for the show because we talk about Elias Pettersson just never shooting anymore. But yeah, honestly, both teams' top sixes feel okay. I much prefer the Rangers top line to this Miller Zibanejad line. I don't know if I'm, out to lunch on that one. Just the underlying metrics are just so much better. So I'll probably have more exposure to New York 1 as opposed to Rangers 2. But I'll probably be fairly balanced in my ownership between New York Islanders 1 and New York Islanders 2. How about you with the second lines here?
Yeah, I think I agree with you there. Will Cooley popping as a value here again at $3,600 looks to be in a pretty good spot for him. He's had some decent shot volume as of late, 7.3 shots on goal per hour. Most of his offense is coming through the goals he's scoring, scoring 1 goal per hour over his last 20. I think I've got a little more interest in some mini stacks with New York too than full stacking these 3 guys. This Islanders second line, I kind of feel similarly about. Like, I don't know how much Simon Holmstrom I'm going to be getting in there, honestly, but he has been red hot here, a bit of a heater this season, 1.2 goals per hour over his last 20 games, shooting like 22%, and has been able to do so consistently. There's just really no floor there for him. He just really doesn't shoot the puck a whole lot, but when he does, it seems to go in. So, $4,500, I think it's an okay price for him there. I think for me in this game, like, my pecking order probably is going to be New York, let's go. Yeah, they're both New York. Good one, Zach. Let's go with the Rangers top line, the Islanders' second line, and then the Islanders' first line. This isn't anything about like not liking the top line because I think they're in a great spot here tonight. But you're getting, better offensive numbers from New York too. They're grading out better in the charts as the sixth best line to target overall, and you're also getting yourself a little bit different by getting off some of this chalk.
Yeah.
We're seeing here on the Islanders' top line.
Yeah. I mean, I can just say that they're hot, but it'd probably be better if I read you some of their statistics as of late. Brock Nelson, in his last, dating back to basically the middle of January, 20 points, including 9 goals in his last 19 games, averaging over 3 shots per game during that time. So a lot to like about that production as of late. And then Kyle Palmieri as well, just been red hot. Let's just go here. Same time frame, 19 games. He has 14 points, including 7 goals. Also shooting north of 3. No, he's over 2 times a game. Excuse me. But yeah, a lot of shot volume from them. A lot of production as of late. Really don't mind getting them. The power plays for both sides in this one, pretty putrid. The Rangers power play has been solid. Obviously, missing out on Fox now, but they go up against Islanders. PK, they ranks 19th. The problem is the Islanders are extremely disciplined, just 2.2 times shorthanded per game. The Rangers also don't draw a ton of penalties. So not a great look here for either power play. As you mentioned, Zach, it does look like Zach Jones will be on the top power play. I hinted at that last week after the Jones trade, and it took 1 game for Zach Jones to be on the top power play. I don't know. I don't mind him as a punt option. I still think that K'Andre Miller is a really strong play on this blue line. He's playing a ton of minutes. He could be 23, 24, 25 minutes tonight, and also seeing power play 2 times. So I like both of them on the blue line here for the Rangers tonight without question. I do think that there's still some other options back there as well. Borgen's seeing a little bit more usage now. Braden Schneider's seeing a little bit more usage. Same with Vakanainen. So a lot of options from the Rangers blue line. The Islanders, the minutes are going to be a little interesting tonight just because they are going with 7 defensemen. Adam Boqvist on that as the 7th defenseman. Scott Mayfield draws back in. Let's stop talking about New York teams. Let's start talking. Well, I guess Buffalo's still kind of a New York team. The Buffalo Sabres and the Montreal Canadiens. The Canadiens are 3.2 implied total up against 3.1 for the Sabres. Pretty much a toss-up game here as well. These two teams also just met, so we got a little bit of data that's pretty recent. They met in Buffalo on the weekend on Saturday, and it was a 4-2 Montreal Canadiens win. Pretty even game for the most part. The Habs probably carried the play a little bit if you're taking a look at just the expected goals for numbers in that game. 3.8 for the Canadiens in all situations, 2.5 for the Sabres. So a bit of a revenge game here for the Sabres. They are similar to the Rangers in where they, seem to be playing a little bit better, but also can't really seem to, string a bunch of W's together, where the Canadiens have been really solid as of late as well. Interesting game here. What I like most here is that the Montreal Canadiens their top line will see project to see 54% of the ice time up against Buffalo 1. Buffalo 1, we saw them go with Ryan McLeod on that top line for about half a game the other night and then put Yuri Kulich back there. They also skated that way in practice yesterday. So it looks like it's going to be back to JJ Peterka, Yuri Kulich, and Tage Thompson on that top line. And we know how good they've been offensively. Just splendid. But defensively, it's basically pond hockey out there. And really, really good matchup there for Montreal 1 to stay hot. Similar profile for Montreal, though, too, right? Their offensive metrics are good, but their defensive metrics pretty poor. To their credit, though, they do face opposition's top line a lot, so it's hard for them to really have great defensive metrics. But this does look like a matchup that could turn into a bit of a track meet as they go head-to-head. Both obviously have great matchups. I'm pretty interested in both teams' top lines here. If we take a look here at the big board, they grade out well as well. Montreal 1 grades out 8th. Buffalo 1 grades out 4th. Both the exact same price at $18,700. Slafkovsky at $5,700 feels a little bit expensive. He's been solid as of late, but still feels a little pricey, and the public feels the same way. He's seen about half the ownership of Caulfield and Suzuki. Peterka's getting up there too at $6,300. Tage Thompson feels fine at $76. Both these lines look like they're in pretty good spots here. I'm going to be certainly having plenty of exposure to both of them. And then it's just really difficult to get to the rest of this lineup, to be honest with you. You always talk about the depth pieces of Montreal a little bit more than I do. Are you interested in getting there tonight, or is it mostly just the top 2 lines here?
Yeah, I got interest here for some of these depth pieces on the Habs, specifically around that third line. They're coming out as the 15th best line to target on the slate as a whole. They're so cheap, $11,300. I wrote up Christian Dvorak as one of my value plays today. Look, I'm going to be totally honest here. I don't entirely love the play, but he's $3,600 in a really solid matchup That third line is going to see 55% of their ice time going up against either Buffalo 1 or Buffalo 3. And if you pull up the line stats, Brock, you'll see that these guys are just not very great defensively. Both of these lines have struggled defensively as of late here. You know, you mentioned Buffalo 1 with their pond hockey play as of late. It's a great way to put it because it's very representative of the way that they're playing right now. And that third line, I mean, they're giving up a lot of goals against here. You know, I think this third line is in an interesting enough spot for me. Christian Dvorak, again, not great numbers over the last little while here. Only 1.5 points per hour of ice time, 5.5 shots on goal per hour. One saving grace, though, in 14 games played against the Sabres in his career, 2 goals and 9 points. So I don't mind this option here. If I'm playing him, I'm probably partnering up with a little mini stack of Brendan Gallagher, who shoots the puck a lot, 10 shots on goal per hour over his last 20 games. So I don't mind getting there whatsoever on that third line. This top line for the Habs really has my interest here tonight, coming out as the 8th best line to target overall, seeing around 10% ownership. Specifically around Juraj Slafkovsky. It feels like he might be turning a little bit of a corner here as of late. And man, he has been great against the Sabres so far this season. In 3 games played, he's got 1 goal and 5 points, averaging 13.5 DraftKings points per game. You know, $5,700, probably a little bit more than I'd like to pay for him, but he's projecting for like half of the ownership of Caulfield and Suzuki. And he's had success. They're going to see a lot of ice time against Buffalo 1. Fire me up for a little bit of this Montreal side tonight.
Yeah, and if you take a look at the last game, which was a couple days ago, Montreal 3 did do a bit of the heavy lifting in that game, and they saw similar matchups to what will see tonight. They saw a little bit more of that Kulich, Peterka, Thompson line than they probably will tonight, but still saw a pretty even mix of that top 9, which is what we're projecting tonight. The matchup looks pretty good at 84.6. Your boy Christian Dvorak led the way with 1.07 individual expected goals, nearly double the rest of the roster. He also picked up 2 assists, 4 shots in that game. You had Brendan Gallagher, 4 shots on goal, 4 scoring chances. So, yeah, that line in a similar spot tonight, I think feels fine if you're looking for some value. And again, going back to them here, 15th best line overall, just 11,300. We talk about how difficult it is to find some decent value, especially value stacks. Montreal 3 feels like a pretty good option tonight. And I didn't want to steal your thunder. I knew you would tout them because that's kind of been your line, going to them quite a bit. But yeah, I'm in. Power plays here tonight. 3rd and 4th best power play advantages for both of these sides. Montreal 11th best power play going up against the 14th ranked PK. Good news for both these power plays is both teams take a lot of penalties, so they project for 2 of the most power plays of the night. The Sabres power play struggling a little bit, 22nd over the last 10. They will face the 16th ranked PK tonight. Let's get to game number 3. Got the Florida Panthers and the Tampa Bay Lightning. The Lightning, inexplicably, are plus 135, despite being maybe the hottest team in the NHL. Somebody really likes the Florida Panthers. There was a lot of money movement here this morning, and it actually made me think that Andrei Vasilevsky wasn't playing, and then he's confirmed, and there's no lineup changes for Tampa. So whoever likes the Panthers tonight, whoever's back in the Panthers tonight, must really like the Seth Jones addition. If you are unaware, Seth Jones was traded from the Chicago Blackhawks to the Florida Panthers, and he will be making his Panthers debut tonight. He's going to be on the second pair with Niko Mikkola. He will also be on the second power play unit. We also have a little bit of a wrinkle here with our boy Mackey moving up to the top power play unit. You've got Carter Verhaeghe down to the second power play unit. You know, interesting game here because I've really liked Florida 2 as of late. The problem is the Lightning just have not been giving up any goals at all. Let's go to the team trends chart here. The Lightning have been really, really solid defensively. 1.15 individual, let's go back to this. 1.15 actual goals against per 60 at 5v5 as of late is just ridiculous. So good. The penalty kill has been basically mediocre, but they've been stout defensively. And Andrei Vasilevsky has literally just been just vintage Vasilevsky as of late, like 950 save percentage in the last 20 games. The Panthers, though, still generating a ton offensively. Power play is still generating a lot. So it's kind of an interesting spot because you've got Vasilevsky. It looks like just such a good play tonight. If he continues to stay hot, he's $7,400. He projects 3rd best goalie overall. He's projected the highest owned goalie. So you do get some leverage against those, basically a quarter of the lineups tonight if you play the Panthers because everybody's going to be playing Vasilevsky tonight. And, I don't know how much of the top line I'm going to get to because I don't want to like put all my eggs in that $21,000 basket in a difficult matchup, especially with Verhaeghe going down to the second power play unit. But I've just really loved playing this third or the second line lately. You got Mackey at $3,800. He's now on that top power play unit. Sam Bennett, we've been talking about his shot volume just being insane as of late at $5,900. And then Evan Rodriguez, I talked about him today. He has averaged 5 shots on goal since moving up to the second line and replacing Matthew Tkachuk since the Four Nations term. He has 20 shots in 4 games. It's been just really, really impressive. So this line, I think, is still a very interesting value option to me. The general public feels the same way. They are seeing a healthy chunk of ownership, specifically Mackey and Bennett, who are on that top power play unit. But like, there's still a good value in my opinion. Like I said, 21,000 for that really difficult matchup seems a little bit more of a difficult pill to swallow here with Florida 1, but I do like Florida 2 quite a bit. On the other side of the puck, I mean, the Panthers, no defensive slouches themselves, man. 1.26 goals against per 60. Way better actual defensive metrics, just 2.18. So looks like a fairly low-scoring game here. The Lightning don't grade out particularly well either. 21,700 is a steep price to pay for Tampa Bay 1. So I think I feel pretty similarly again, where I will probably play a little bit of Florida 1 and a little bit of Tampa 1, but I'm going to have much more exposure to the second line of the Tampa Bay Lightning as well. It's a line that I've played plenty of the season. You still got Hagel, still got Cirelli at decent price tags. Their matchup obviously far from ideal, but the underlying metrics for them has been just outstanding all season. So I really like the value you get from these two lines. Probably going to limit my exposure on the top 2 lines as a result. Zach, before I get to you, I do just want to bring up the Tampa Bay Lightning power plays. We are going to see Darren Radish back on that top power play unit with Gensel, Point, and Kucherov. So if you full stack the top line, it makes a lot of sense to get Darren Radish in there as a value option tonight. They are going to go with 7 defensemen again, though, so his ice time is probably going to be relatively limited. And then you've got Cirelli, Hagel, Hedman look like a nice stack there on that second power play unit as well. The power play has been really good, but they run into a tough PK tonight. The Panthers have been 6th best. Okay, Zach, are you any different? Do you think I'm crazy for not playing a lot of these 2 top lines, or are you leaning more towards the value lines as well?
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure where I'm going to come out here on this game. You mentioned that the Lightning have been red hot, and they certainly have. Dating back to the beginning of February, they are the best team in the NHL with a 944 points percentage, 8-0-1 over that stretch of time. The Panthers, give them credit too, because they've been great as well. 7-2-0 record, 778 points percentage, fourth best record in the league. You kind of got 2 juggernauts here going head to head right now, and 2 teams that are absolutely on PDO burners. I mean, the Lightning are running a 109 PDO right now. The Panthers are running a 102. Somebody's got a crack here in this game. I lean a little bit more towards that Tampa side of things. I bet them outright at plus 130 this morning. Just felt like a number that was too low here. I think one thing that kind of scares me a bit about this game is the fact that the pace score is really low. A 96.9 is the lowest of any game on tonight's slate. But, you take a look at the firepower that there is here. And I think these lines in the top 6 are fairly easy to get to, or I can feel comfortable enough getting to both of them. I think what I might just do is play 10% Florida 1, 10% Florida 2, and do the exact same thing with the Lightning and just hope that one of these lines kind of finds a spot somewhere against somebody. So I think that's kind of the way that I'm going to attack it. I think Evan Rodriguez is a great one-off play at $4,400. You mentioned that shot volume there. 11.1 shots on goal per hour over his last 20 games. And the truth of the matter is he's got the highest goals per hour rate of any Florida Panthers forward over the last 20 games, 1.5 goals per hour, which goes up against 1.5 individual expected goals. So he's getting a lot of quality looks, and he's capitalizing on him here as of late. I think he's a really solid play. The goaltending is kind of what makes this game interesting as well for me. $7,400 Andre Vasilevsky, it's just too low for me in terms of like how much he's costing. He should be up in that 8K range, right up there with Sergei Bobrovsky. He's been so great as of late here too. Like he has been just absolutely like peak Vasilevsky. What makes it difficult for me is like the goaltending feels just gross on this slate. Like the goaltending feels really, really rough. So I can understand why the public's getting to so much Vasilevsky here. Around 23% right now. So it's going to be interesting to see the way this one all kind of shakes out. But yeah, as you pull up the numbers here for Vasilevsky, like he has been just on a tear.
944 save percentage in his last 14 starts. That's insane.
It's ridiculous.
Insanely good. Yeah, Bobrovsky, to his credit, has been solid too. I'm just brought up their 2 games this year. There was a 4-2 Panthers win. Sam Reinhart in the top line did most of the damage in that one. Sam Reinhart had 2 goals. Barkov had an assist. And then the other game, which was the next day, was a 4-0 shutout win for Jonas Johansson. Stopped all 36 shots. Brandon Hagel goal and assist. Sorelli had 2 assists in that game. Jake Gensel, Nikita Kucherov each had a goal as well. So these 2 teams, both in their 2 meetings this year, both top lines have gotten there. Even though the matchup looks difficult, they've found ways to get there in this matchup before. So yeah, I'm not completely crossing them off, but I just think that there's probably better pay up options overall on this slate. I mean, let's just show who they are. Like Tampa Bay 1 grades out 11th best. Florida 1 grades out 7th best, and there's a lot of lines that are cheaper than them grading out above them. So I do think it is just a little difficult to get there, especially with kind of a lack of overall value on the slate. But yeah, I mean, Vasilevsky still feels like it's an incredible play overall. Let's get to game number 4. We've got the Toronto Maple Leafs and the San Jose Sharks. The Maple Leafs, unsurprisingly, are gigantic. -342 faves. 4.0 implied total is the highest on the slate. 2.2 implied total for the Sharks is the lowest on the slate. So we had Macklin Celebrini is listed as a game time decision, or was a game time decision, is expected to play tonight. So that's great news for the Sharks, because I was looking at some of their numbers this morning with and without Macklin Celebrini on the ice, and whoa, he is pretty much their entire offense. Matchups for this game. The top line, the Matthews line, is expected to see the majority of their ice time coming up against that Celebrini line. To their credit, have been quite good defense. I shouldn't say quite good. They've been solid. 2.2 expected goals against per 60 is really good number. 3.8 actual goals against, not a great number. That's what happens when you have Alexander Georgiev between the pipes for your team. So yeah, like the matchup, it doesn't seem necessarily great for the Matthews line, but they can kind of just dominate everybody. So I'm not that concerned about it. Their offensive metrics are simply insane. What's most interesting here is Toronto 2. Their offensive metrics are still meh when Pontus Holmberg plays there. The real king tonight, or for them lately, has just been the ice time. The usage for Tavares and Nylander has been massive. 32% of the ice time as of late. So they're going to see a lot more usage. And then their matchup is a little bit better. They're going to see a lot heavier mix. About 70% of their ice time is going to be against the bottom 9 here of the Sharks, which after you get down from that Celebrini line, it's basically pretty horrendous. To Wenberg's credit, that line's been solid too. But this bottom 6 just gets crushed. So I think it's quite easy, obviously, to get to a lot of Toronto tonight. Everyone is doing so, specifically Matthews at 32.7% ownership. Marner at 21%. Nye's kind of being left behind because he's $6,600 at 9.5%. Toronto, too, as I mentioned, though, they are so interesting. They are seeing about half the ownership. Tavares, a third of the ownership of Matthews. Same thing goes for Nylander, pretty much a third of the ownership. I love them as a pivot option tonight. I will probably have an even distribution of both of these 2 lines and get a little bit of leverage on Toronto 2 and probably come in, a little bit under the field on Toronto 1. I don't think that Matthews has necessarily looked himself basically the whole season. I don't think he's necessarily looked himself since coming back from 4 Nations. I mean, your guy there in Edmonton, Connor McDavid, said, I'd be lying to you if I said I felt good right now. Like these 4 Nation guys do feel like they've kind of come out of it a little bit worse from where they played 4 game 7s in a week span, basically in 10 days. So yeah, it's tough. It's been a bit of a grind. So, if I want to kind of continue with that narrative, I do think that it makes, that Tavares line a little bit better as well. What are your thoughts here? We'll start on the Toronto side of things and we'll sprinkle in some San Jose into the mix as well.
Yeah, obviously Toronto looks like they're in a great spot here tonight. Tons of ownership coming in on that top line. Probably comfortable getting there at around 20%, full stacking these guys here. Matthew Nye is only coming in with 9.5% ownership here. Just continuing to score goals left, right, and center. 1.6 goals per hour over his last 20 games, 2.9 points per hour. Very productive. The problem with him and with Mitch Marner is just not a lot of shot volume for either of these guys. Both just a hair over 5 shots on goal per hour. So Most of their point production rather from DraftKings perspective is from their points and what they're producing. The good news is that these guys produce a lot of points, so you can feel comfortable playing them and not really be overly concerned about that floor. 4.2 goals per hour for this top line. They just continue to run red hot. I love the idea of getting down here to this Toronto second line and honestly getting over the field on them, man. I mean, only 9% ownership coming in for these guys. They're a little expensive at $19,300 to full stack, but I think there's enough value here on this slate where you can kind of get them into the mix comfortably. I think for me, I'm going to be double the field here probably on this Toronto second line. It's going to be a lot of ownership on Toronto as a whole here, but it does feel like a great spot. It's Georgiev in net for the Sharks, who is evidently still just a terrible goaltender right now. So I got no problem with that. And the really interesting thing too, kind of goes without saying, but that power play 1 correlation for Toronto 2 as well, with Tavares and Nylander up there on the top unit. So look to be in a great spot here tonight with the best matchup. Both teams are relatively undisciplined here as of late. So I think that's kind of the way that I'm going to attack it. Comfortable mixing in this top 6 here and probably sprinkling in just a little bit of Toronto 3 here as well. They're only seeing 5% ownership as a full stack. But they're continuing to find ways to be productive as well. It feels like, their names are popping up quite a bit. Obviously, the big issue for them is just the lack of ice time, only playing about 22% of the time, but 3.3 goals per hour for that third line. So continuing to find ways to be productive, still good shot volume from Bobby McMann and Nick Robertson. So I don't mind getting them into the mix here a little bit as well. The San Jose side of things, this is kind of an interesting spot for them as well here. Obviously, it's going to be a tough test for them going up against the Leafs. First game for Macklin Celebrini against the Toronto Maple Leafs. So you got a little narrative play there, but him and Tyler Toffoli just continuing to be the offensive drivers here for this Shark side of things. 10.6 shots on goal per hour for Celebrini over his last 20. Toffoli right up there with his shot volume as well. And Toffoli, 1.5 goals per hour over his last 20 games. So scoring a lot here as of late.
I have not looked at Alexander Georgiev's numbers in a while.
Hit me.
Holy shit.
Give them to me.
How many wins do you think he has in his last 15 starts?
0.
He has 1. He's 112-1 with an 880 save percentage. He has given up at least 4 goals in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 of his last 15. Woo! I like the Leafs a lot tonight. And I think Toronto 3 is probably fine as well. I'm not going to get to him a ton, but because again, with the pricing, they're coming up a bit, but I think I'll probably meet the field at 5%. I think that's fine. San Jose is interesting, right? That top line has been really solid. I'll probably get to them. You got the Leafs here on a back-to-back. I don't mind mixing in a little bit of San Jose 1. They grade out 9th best. The matchup for them isn't great. The underlying metrics have been really, really good. The rest of the Sharks team, though, it's just really difficult to get there. I think they got some decent value plays on the blue line, but mostly this top line, I'll definitely get them into the mix tonight. They're seeing just 7% ownership. I'll be over that. Because I think that they can still score. Celebrini, Eklund, and Toffoli have been really, really solid. The price tag's good enough. I don't mind getting there. As you mentioned, the Maple Leafs, the best power play matchup on the slate. The Sharks do face a decent or like a Maple Leafs penalty kill that's been struggling as of late here, just 23rd over the last 10. So another reason to kind of like that top line is they fully correlate on the top power play unit. Don't mind getting them in tonight. One anomaly from yesterday's game, I just wanted to bring up the stats from the Leafs yesterday. So you had Matthews' goal and assist with 6 shots on goal. Tavares had a goal. Nylander had a goal. Tavares also hit the shot bonus with 5 shots. Philippe Myers played 20 minutes and 21 seconds last night. He had 5 shots on goal. So if you're looking for a decent value option on the blue line tonight as well, Philippe Myers has stepped into that Chris Tanev role and provided some decent DFS value lately. Okay, final game of the night. You got the Chicago Blackhawks, the LA Kings. The Kings minus 252 road faves. The 2.3 implied total for the Blackhawks, 3.6 for the Kings. The Kings kind of pissed me off today because the charts were pretty much done. I was ready to go, and then all of a sudden we found out they changed their lines, at least expected to. This is what they ran this morning, going back to kind of what we were used to seeing them last week. Turcotte, Kopitar, Kempe, which means Fiala is back with Byfield and Laferriere. I guess Laferriere is back with Byfield and Fiala. So we know that line was who we were playing before. Then they put Kempe with Byfield and Fiala, and we were like, hell yeah, let's keep playing them. They were unbelievable. There's really no reason to play anybody other than LA2 in this game tonight. In my opinion, obviously LA3 has been great. We'll get to them in a second. But LA2, I much prefer them over LA1 for obvious reasons. One, the matchup's still really good. The underlying metrics are insanely good. They're super, super, super good. So love LA2 tonight. They ran out was literally the best line overall, 18,700. Lots of like Spencer Knight's interesting, right? Like pretty quality goalie. It's going to be interesting to see how he goes from playing for a very structured, very good defensive Panthers team to the Blackhawks. I mean, let's just take a look at it here. Last 10 games, Panthers 2.18 expected goals against per 60 at 5v5. Chicago Blackhawks 3.07. So going to be a new beast here for Spencer Knight. Unfortunately for him, it's going to be interesting to see how he plays. I don't imagine it's going to go great in his first game, but definitely an improvement between the pipes there for the Blackhawks. So we'll talk about him a little bit later. Love LA2 tonight. Love what they've done. Love how good Fiala and Byfield have been as of late. Laferriere kind of hot and cold, but he fits nicely with them on that line. Just 18,700. He's a great price at $4,900. They're only projected for 9.4% average ownership here. Shocked by that. Obviously, people feel much better about the Maple Leafs than they do the Kings, so I'm going to definitely have plenty of leverage on the Kings tonight. LA3, probably the most expensive that they've ever been and probably ever will be, unless they host the Sharks soon. Warren Fogle, $5,300. He's been on fire the last couple of weeks. Philip Deneau, $5,400 as well. Can take it or leave it. I feel better about the Fogle more mini stack than I do including Deneau, but I don't hate him if you need a center. He's fine. I feel similarly to the field here. Probably half my LA2 lineup or LA3 lineups will include Deneau, similar to how the ownership shakes out here. But they're super under-owned too. I get it because their price has gone up, but like they're in a great spot and they're playing unbelievable. Just to give you an idea of how hot they've been, Warren Fogle it's been like 2 weeks of this. Is it not? I feel like he just hasn't stopped scoring. So dating back to, February 5th. So the second to last game before the break, 8 points, including 5 goals in his last 8 games. Tremendous for what you're paying for him. Obviously, the prices come up. And then Trevor Moore has been, we talked about it a lot earlier, like where did Trevor Moore's shot volume go? And it's bounced back in a big way outside of the last game in which he had 0 shots on goal against the Blues, but still has 5 goals in his last 9 games and has 25 shots on goal during that stretch. So nearly just over 2.5 shots per game has been solid. I don't mind getting to them either. I think you could still play Kempe, right? Like obviously Kempe's great. Kopitar, he gets on the board. I don't mind that many. I just feel so much better about LA2 and then the value you get on LA3. So LA1's probably going to get left by the wayside for me. Zach, are you feeling similar?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think I really love the look of this second line. I think it goes without saying. I mean, we've played these guys a lot just over the last number of years here. I think it's a really interesting spot for them here tonight. Again, we talk about the ownership being far too low. They're the number 1 line to target here on the slate overall. I don't see any reason to be pretty heavy here on this second line. I know myself, I'm probably going to be double the field on them in my 20 max here tonight. I have no issue really loading up on these guys. I think Byfield, I think I prefer playing Byfield a little bit more than I prefer Laferriere. He's drawing like 13% ownership tonight here on this slate. I'm not entirely sure why, beyond the fact that he's the least expensive top 9 forward for the LA Kings here as of late. The truth of the matter is like when you look at his numbers compared to Warren Fogle over the last 20, I would rather just pay $400 more and play Warren Fogle at $5,300. I do understand that Laferriere does have that power play 1, spot, but the Kings power play really has not been great at all this season, nor as of their last 10 games here, coming in with the 20th ranked power play, going up against a tough penalty kill, which is a surprising thing to say about the Chicago Blackhawks. I mean, if there's one good thing about the Blackhawks this year, they've been able to kill penalties successfully. So give them some credit for that one there. Yeah, Jim B, that one hits the nail on the head. I'm honestly kind of pissed off that they changed up the lines here because I was really excited to play Kempe, Fiala, Byfield tonight. Like we were talking about it before the show. Like, we were both like, holy hell, how are they coming in with such low ownership here? But back to Laferriere and Fogle. If you look at Laferriere's numbers over his last 20 games, 0.4 goals per hour of ice time, 1.3 individual expected goals. He's shooting 5% versus a season long of 12% and 8.7 shots on goal per hour. Warren Fogle, meanwhile, 1.1 shots on goal per hour, 1.4 individual expected goals, shooting 11%, which is right around his mark for the season as a whole. And he's taken more shots, 9.6 on goal per hour of ice time, averaging like 2.5 shots on goal per game over that stretch. I think I like this third line here for the Kings. And I think that's kind of what I'm getting to in all of this. So I'm probably going to be fairly spread out, double the field on this second line. Definitely going to be mixing in a little bit of that third line here tonight. And I'll probably have some minis of Kopitar and Kopitar and Kempe as well.
Honestly, I'll probably still build a few Fiala, Byfield, Kempe lineups because, again, like we've seen it. The first game they put them together. Next game they broke them up. Next game they started together. A couple games later they break them up. Wouldn't be shocked, especially if this game's close or tied after 2 periods or a period, or they're struggling to get anything going and they put them back together. And Kempe just feels like a strong one-off. LaFerrier's okay, but seeing a lot of ownership. So, like, yeah, I don't mind getting some Fiala, Byfield, and Kempe stacks still. And just, hey, you never know. They might get put back together and people probably won't have them stacked up too much. One interesting note, and I remember talking about this last year, and I don't think I've said it. I didn't say it today yet. Since Phil Deneau was traded from the Chicago Blackhawks back in what would it have been 2016, he has nearly a point per game in his career against the Blackhawks. 8 goals, 16 points in 17 games. He is like nowhere close to a point per game against basically anybody else. So he likes playing against a team that traded him, if you want to run with that narrative. Okay, Chicago Blackhawks side of things. Teuvo Teravainen has been just scorching hot. I don't know if you want to chase that because he has no shot volume and no goal equity, really, but he's basically picking up like an assist on every goal that the Chicago Blackhawks scored for the last 2 weeks. I don't mind Teravainen and Donato as a mini stack. I think that's okay. They have the best matchup overall on this Chicago side of things. I'm probably, again, not going to be mixing in a ton, but Teravainen 5,100, Donato 5,200. I think it's okay. 5-10%. I don't mind them there. And then Chicago 1 grades out 20th. You get decent salary relief here with Slaggert and Nazar on that top line with Bedard. I think it's interesting. We talk, there's plenty of young talent on this line. Obviously, they looked pretty good against the Ducks. I don't know if everybody just hated Seth Jones. I'm not putting that out there. I'm just saying, hey, they looked a lot better, and he was kind of, made some rude comments at the end of his little tenure there. So, hey, maybe they're feeling good now. Maybe this is a whole new team. I don't think that's the case. I think that's just they played the Anaheim Ducks. But Chicago won, man. 3,000 for Slaggert, 6,200 for Bedard, Nazar, 4,200. Only 13,400. I think you can do worse than that. They're going to see a lot of that Kopitar line, which obviously is far from ideal. But they could be facing the Byfield line. But
yeah,
I just haven't played a lot of Chicago like at all. Outside of like when Donato is with Bedard, I basically never play them. So I probably will continue to do that today, but I'll have them a little bit.
I don't hate the idea of getting down to that Teravainen Donato mini stack. They're the ones who are scoring pretty much all of the goals, it seems like, as of late for Chicago. Teravainen 1.2 goals per hour and 3.6 points per hour over his last 20 games. As you mentioned, no shot volume, 4.7 shots on goal per hour. Ryan Donato, this guy is just doing the Blackhawks so many favors by scoring the way that he is this season, coming up to the trade deadline.
Gonna get 2 first-round picks for him.
Honestly, it would not surprise me if there was a huge return for Donato. 1.8 goals per hour over his last 20 games, 3.9 points per hour. And he's actually got solid shot volume, 7.5 shots on goal per hour of ice time. I don't know if I can stomach them at 10K or just over 10,000 for a mini stack of these guys, but I can understand why you're getting down there. If I'm maybe focusing on a value lineup or something like that in my 20 max, I don't hate the idea of mixing them in there. I don't know if I can get to Chicago 1 at all. Bedard just looks like a complete shell of the player that, we thought he was coming out of the WHL. Obviously it's been a really tough year for them there. But man, the offense has just not been there for Bedard as of late. 0.9 goals per hour, 2 points per hour. Those are okay numbers, but the guy is just not shooting the puck, man. 5.8 shots on goal per hour of ice time over his last 20 games. That for me is the really concerning part of Bedard's game here as of late. He plays an absolute shit ton of minutes.
Sure does.
But I don't know, man. I think I have a hard time getting up to Chicago 1 tonight.
Bedard's last 5 games, 0 goals, 0 assists, -8, 9 shots on goal, averaging 22 minutes a night. Stuff. It is. Teravainen and Donato carry. They're the best players on this team.
I guess Bedard's at least shooting the puck more than Elias Pettersson is. So
there's that. He's also shooting the puck more than Tuo Teravainen is, but Teravainen's just all the apples. All the apples you can handle. Their power play is the second best power play on the slate tonight. If you want to run that narrative by anybody, you've got Donato, Teravainen, and Vlasic stack. Come on, let's do it. Let's
Gross.
do
I
it.
love it.
Okay, let's get to the defensemen and goalies, and we'll get you on your way here. Yeah, Vlasic, all those defensemen for the Blackhawks are going to see a lot more ice time now with Seth Jones in Florida. I'm very interested to see how Seth Jones fits into the Florida Panthers. We talked about it a little bit pre-show. I don't think he's like a huge needle mover for them. I think he's really going to solidify that second pairing. I think he's really going to solidify that second power play unit. I think he could eventually take over for Aaron Ekblad, but at 5K tonight, I don't know how much I'm going to get to him tonight, but I'm very interested to watch how Seth Jones fits into that lineup this evening. It's going to be a fun game to watch. Keandre Miller grades out splendidly at $3,600. I'll definitely be getting back to him. Jake McCabe, all those kind of Toronto defensemen, Philippe Myers, without Tanev are going to see a little bit more ice time. So I don't mind McCabe at 4,100. I probably prefer Myers at $1,100 cheaper. We talked about, the Schneiders, the Zach Jones from the Rangers. They're all solid value options. I think that the Alex Carrier from the Canadiens looks okay. Lane Hutson, $4,500 looks fine. There's not a lot of defensemen that really are jumping off the board to me tonight, if I'm being totally honest. Outside of Keandre Miller, he's like the only one and Zach Jones, I guess, that I really, really like as a value. How about you?
Yeah, so I wrote up Zach Jones and Philippe Myers as my two main defensemen that I like tonight. I think they're both solid plays. Punt defensemen, I wrote up Jack Thompson and Wyatt Kaiser. Great to see my boy Kaiser back in the Chicago Blackhawks lineup. Only $2,800 for him. Shoots the puck a lot, blocks a ton of pills. I think there's a pretty good amount of value here on this slate in terms of defense. You look at the New York Rangers, for example, Keandre Miller, great shot on him at $3,600. Braden Schneider, my boy, also at $3,600. 7.4 block shots per hour over Schneider's last 20 games. Guy is eating a lot of pills out there. Where else am I here? The Toronto side of things, I think there's some interesting options there. As you mentioned, Myers, I really like the look of him. I think Jake McCabe at $4,100, I can get behind that. San Jose, Jack Thompson, again, $2,700 for him. A lot of shot volume, a lot of blocks. Obviously, not a ton of minutes there as of late, but he's finding ways to be really productive for them. Timothy Liljegren looks like he could be fairly solid here tonight at $3,400. If you want a revenge game narrative play, his first time back in Toronto since he got traded out to San Jose earlier this year. And then
here's a hat trick pick.
There we go. Kel McCarr couldn't do it for me last week, but Timothy Liljegren, come on down, buddy.
Lock it in.
And then the Chicago defenseman too. I think there's a lot of value here on this blue line. A lot of cheap guys. Alex Vlasic, $3,500, drawing the most ownership. But I like Connor Murphy at $3,900. I mean, this is another guy who blocks a ton of pills. And then the aforementioned Wyatt Kaiser as well.
Zach Jones projected for the highest ownership at $2,800 makes sense. Vlasic second highest, $3,500 makes sense. Darren Radish, we talked about him a little bit earlier, $2,900 expected to be on that top power play unit, but also only projected for 13 minutes. Kind of in there as more of a power play specialist. So I do have some concern about his usage, but obviously in a good power play spot there. Keandre Miller, Philippe Myers rounding out kind of that top 10 in terms of ownership. Let's get to the goalies. We've talked about Vasilevsky a ton. We're both going to have a lot of them, as is everybody. After him, gets a little dicey, as you mentioned. I don't mind Sorokin in potential bounce back spot here after a really ugly showing against these Rangers at $7,200. It's bad. Vasilevsky might be 40% owned tonight.
He honestly might be. It would not surprise me at all to see him huge ownership numbers on him.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't know who else to play.
Stolarz than Kemper.
Stolarz is fine. I think he's a good play, but he's $8,600. Mm-hmm. There's nobody in this mid price range that feels like a great play. 8K Spencer Knight, he shouldn't be that expensive. He should be down.
I'd rather play
$7,200 like Sorokin. Speaking of Sorokin, I mean, he's been terrible against the Rangers in his career. 3 wins in 10 games played, a 3.5 goals against average. I don't know. That feels gross. Bobrovsky, I guess he's a good play too, but he's also not been great against Tampa throughout his career. Only 13 wins in 32 games played. I don't know, man. I think I'm just going to be rolling dice. I think I'm just going to get one of those random name generators and just put all of the goalies in there and then just like press the button. And it's like, all right, this is who I'm building my lineup around for the goaltenders. Cause I just don't really know where to go beyond Vasilevsky.
Yeah, it's tough. Like Shesterkin feels okay, but like he's just so hard to trust. Like
we got to check with Nick Toons in the DFS Discord though.
He's
If Nick
playing him for
Toons is
sure.
playing Shesterkin, do not play Shesterkin.
Yeah, since the break, he has an 891 save percentage in 4 games. He had one game where he hit 5 on 16. The next game, he stopped 37 of 40, and then he stopped 36 of 37. So, like, he can have those games and just be an absolute dog. And then the next night, he gave up 3 on 17 and just completely ruined your lineup. So, yeah, he's interesting, but like he's obviously super scary too. So, okay, let's get to our DFO DFS head-to-head matchup challenge and our hat trick pick challenge. If you want to participate in today's hat trick pick challenge, drop your hat trick pick in the comment section of the video on YouTube. If your player scores a hat trick, we'll get you a $25 gift card to Nation Gear. You can pick up some DFO swag. If a player scores a hat trick tonight and nobody picks him, we will just draw a name from anybody who submitted a hat trick pick. Zach, you won Friday's head to head, so you can pick first.
I didn't just win the head to head on Friday. I spanked you, as you said, in our little text this morning. Beat you by, what was it, like 17 points? Ooh,
yeah.
Tough scene out there, Brock.
I beat you by like 40 once last week, and I did not bring that up, but I guess
that's
what we're
okay.
gonna have to do.
We forgot about that one already. Yeah, let's take a look at the lineups here tonight. If we can get them up on the screen.
Pick your hat trick pick. Do your hat trick pick first.
Oh, a hat trick pick first?
Yeah.
Timothy Liljegren.
There you go. I'm gonna go with let's go Evan Rodriguez in a chalk busting Hattie.
Love it.
Vasilevsky.
Love it.
Let's get today's DFO head-to-head. We are now tied 34-34 on the season. Zach, who'd you go with tonight?
I just have to say, first and foremost, I think it's a really cool thing that we have been essentially tied all season long. Like,
yeah,
we've had a couple of runs where one of us has pulled away, but the other's gotten back into it. Yeah, good stuff here. So for me tonight, I honestly had a bit of a hard time building this lineup. I didn't entirely know where to go. I started with an LA2 stack, mini stack with Fiala and Laferriere. I felt like that was a good play. Put in my value defenseman that I liked, Philippe Myers and Jack Thompson. I think they're both solid plays tonight, as I mentioned. I wanted to play Andre Vasilevsky because I couldn't really find another goaltender that I felt great about. Austin Matthews got the one-off in there for me. Didn't go with the mini stack route. Will Cooley fits as a value play at $3,600. And then I needed 2 more guys to fill in, and I went with Tampa 2. I don't necessarily feel the greatest about it. The matchup's obviously pretty rough for them as a whole here, but it was either them or play Florida 2 and go with a different goaltender. So this is the route that I chose. We're going with the Lightning stack.
I went with Matthews and Marner, mainly because I wanted to show how hard it is to build around them. They are so expensive. And there's a lack of really cheap options. Like, obviously it's not impossible to build around them, but like that, I think it just goes to show why I like Toronto 2 so much, just because they're so much cheaper. It's hard to build around Matthews, Marner. I mean, good luck full stacking Toronto 1 tonight. So I went with Matthews, Marner. I also got Philippe Myers in there for some salary relief at $3K. Vasilevsky between the pipes, obviously. I went with that Fogle more mini stack. And then I went with Cooley and K'Andre Miller as value options from the Rangers. It left me with $3,900, maybe $4,100 left. And I needed a center. The best one available was JG Pajot at $3,900 on the top line. For the Islanders, don't necessarily love it. Probably going to limit my Toronto 1 exposure a little bit just because it is difficult to get there if you want to stack anything else of substance. But if you want to participate again in today's hat trick pick challenge, drop your hat trick pick in the comment section of the video on YouTube. While you're there, smash the like button. Also, if you want to get $20 off your first month to Roto Grinders Premium, you can do so by clicking the link in the description of the video. Shout out to them for providing projected ownership for today's show. If you want to take everything you learned today, run it through their optimizer, build the optimal lineup tonight. You can get $20 off your first month. And you can also join the DFO DFS Discord. Link is in the description of the bio or of the video. Shout out to Zach for getting through it today and dealing with me a little bit fired up. He's a little grumpy. We did it. I think by the end of every show, you're always in a much better mood. Hanging out with me for 53 minutes tends to have that effect.
Absolutely, it does.
Hopefully, you return with more money in your bankroll tomorrow than you had tonight. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Just a couple of programming notes before we go. It is the trade deadline this week on Friday. Dailyfaceoff.com is very, very busy this time of year. So we are going to try to come live Monday through Thursday this week. As long as there's no like crazy trade rumors right before we go live, we will be here. There will be no show on Friday. Zach's got to do everything for the Oilers, covering the Oilers at Oilers Nation. I've got to do everything for DFO. From a DFO fantasy perspective, the lines, the trade tracker, all that stuff at DFO. So Friday's a write-off for us. We will not be live for Friday. Probably won't have charts either. But Monday through Thursday, we will be here doing this show. So hopefully the NHL works with us a little bit. There's no massive trades at 4:40 right before we go live, but we're going to do our best to come live and break these down all week, and then we will be back obviously full time after that. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. Smash the like button. We'll see you back here tomorrow. Until then, cheers.
Cheers.